Hello, my name is Braden. This is Airless Cool 9, and in today's video, we're going to talk about how to create a magic item. So, this is the third video in this creating series. So, if you're interested in how to create a background or how to create a creature, take a look at the previous videos that I have in this playlist. Um, so we're going to go ahead and talk about how to create a magic item. There are two ways to approach this. The first is by modifying an existing magic item, and then the second way is by creating something entirely new. And we're going to talk about both of those. But let's start with modifying a magic item. So there are a number of ways for us to modify a magic item in order to create a new one. The first way for us to do this would be by altering the capabilities of a magic item. We could do so by simply replacing the capability of one magic item with a similar one. An example of this would be changing a potion of climbing into a potion of swimming by simply replacing the climbing speed that the potion would grant to a swimming speed instead. That would be a very simple way to alter the capabilities of an existing magic item to create a new one. You can also go about altering the form of an existing magic item, which just alters the item's form but leaves its properties intact. So, for example, you could take the properties of a cloak of protection and change it to where the cloak of protection is another worn object, such as a circlet. We already have reference for this. See the ring of protection, which does exactly what the cloak of protection does, but it's a different type of object. So yeah, there's precedent for this in the game itself. You can also alter the damage type of a magic item. This all this does is you choose a magic item that deals damage of one type and instead change it to deal a different type of damage. You could, for example, take a flame tongue weapon and cause it to deal lightning damage instead of fire damage. Obviously, it's no longer a flame tongue weapon, but it functions pretty much exactly the same, except for dealing a different damage type. So you've now created a new weapon by just changing the damage type of an existing one. You can also combine the properties of two magic items, provided that no more than one of them requires attunement. And in doing so, you can create a new magic item via that path. For example, you could combine the properties of a helm of comprehend languages and those of a helm of telepathy into a single helmet. This may make the item more powerful, so you may need to increase the rarity of the said item, but it shouldn't break the balance of your game doing so, which is nice. The final way of modifying a magic item would be either to grant it special features or grant the item sentience. There are rules for doing both of these in Chapter 7 of the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide, and we're going to take a look at how to do this briefly, so bear with me just a second. So you can see here we have magic item special features. There are a number of tables with suggestions on what to add to a magic item just to give it a little bit more of a variety. You can see here that you can give the item a creator or intended user. This is a 1d20 temple that you can roll on or choose the option that you prefer. Similarly, there is a history table, which is a 1d8 table, and there are 8 options available here. And then we also have the minor property table, which is a 1d20 table, and the quirk table, which is a 1d8 table. So as you can see here, there are a number of unique little bonuses that you can give to an item to give it some variety. The quirks and minor properties are very easy to add, and they do give a little bit of a special flair to an existing magic item. You could also just add this to a mundane item to make it magical and make a unique item. And if you so prefer, if you roll either a 20 on the minor property table or decide to that you want more than one option, you can choose two of those minor properties to add to an item just to give it uh, some additional options here. One of my favorites on this list is the Guardian trait, which increases the proficiency bonus of the wielder by 2, which is kind of nice. And War Leader is also pretty interesting. There are a number of interesting, unique properties that you can add to an item just to give it a little bit more flair, which is pretty nice. As for making a magic item sentient, there are a number of things that you need to keep in mind when doing this. First is you'll need to assign ability scores to the sentient magic item. You only need to do so for intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And you can either choose the scores that you want or determine them randomly by rolling 4d6, dropping the lowest roll, and adding the other 3 die together to get the total for that specific score. So pretty simple there. You also will need to choose an alignment for the item. There is a sentient item alignment table, which is a 1d100 table that we will look at in just a second. You also need to determine what type of or communication the sentient magic item is able to perform. This will determine whether it communicates by sharing emotions, broadcasting telepathically, or simply speaking aloud, as that is an option. There is a table for this. It's the sentient items communication table, which is a 1d10 table. You also can give the sentient magic item senses. There's a 1d4 table for this called the sentient item senses table. And you can also design or grant a special purpose to the sentient magic item as well. This is a 1d10 table called the sentient item special purpose table. And there are some interesting options here. So you can see here that there are indeed tables for all 4 of those last options that I spoke of. And there's some pretty interesting options here. Obviously, alignment is going to be self-explanatory. You just have to choose the item's alignment. Determining what senses the item has could be interesting. A lot of powerful sentient magic items usually have the item have dark vision. So that makes perfect sense there as the end option of that small 1d4 table. Obviously, you'll need to determine the communication abilities of the item. So there is that 1d10 table there. And then the sentient item special purpose table is the most interesting out of the 4 tables presented here. It just gives a reason for that item having been granted sentience and technically having been created in the first place. So yeah, some pretty interesting options on that table there. And then the last thing that you'll need to keep in mind is conflicts can occur when a player is wielding a sentient magic item. Of course, the bearer of the sentient magic item, if they act in a manner opposed to the item's alignment or purpose, this can create a conflict within the game between the player and the item. The rules for this are when a conflict occurs, the item's bearer, the DM gets to decide when, has to make a charisma saving throw, DC 12 plus the item's charisma modifier. On a failed save, the item can make one or more of the following demands. Chase my dreams is the first option. The item demands that its bearer pursue the item's goals to the exclusion of all other goals. Get rid of it. The item demands that its bearer dispose of anything the item finds repugnant. It's time for a change. The item demands to be given to someone else. Obviously, one of the more interesting options there. And then keep me close. The item insists on being carried or worn at all times. Pretty selfish, but an interesting option there. If the bearer of the sentient item refuses to comply with the demands that are given to it, the item can do any of the following. It can make it impossible for its bearer to attune to it, which obviously has detriments there because the main way of gaining the abilities of a sentient magic item is by attuning to it. So basically, it'll become pretty much inert for that player. You can also suppress one or more of its activated properties. This is a pretty easy way, especially if you suppress one of the abilities that the player really likes using of the item. That's a good way of using that suppression effect. And then you can also attempt to take control of the bearer of the item. Obviously, do this sparingly because some players don't like to have their will taken away from them. Obviously, speak with your player if this is something that you want to do and make sure that they are okay with the consequences of that. If you're going to take control of the bearer of the item, the bearer has to make a charisma saving throw, DC 8 or DC 12 plus the item's charisma modifier. On a failed save, the bearer has the charmed condition for 1d12 hours. While charmed in this way, the bearer must try to follow the item's commands, and if the bearer takes damage, it can repeat the save, ending the effect on a success. Whether or not the attempt to control its bearer succeeds, the item can't use this power again until the next dawn. So yeah, conflict can arise from not following the wishes of your sentient magic item, because obviously this item is a character in itself and it is going to have issues if you're using it in a way that it does not deem to be true to its nature. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're adding sentience to an item, or even if you're just running a sentient magic item. So yeah, some pretty interesting things here to keep in mind when adding sentience to an item. Finally, we get to the second option, which is just creating a new item. So we can modify an item that doesn't quite fulfill. Oh, sorry. If modifying an item doesn't quite fulfill the need that we're looking for, we can create one entirely from scratch. Obviously, when creating a magic item, we should either let a character do something they couldn't do before, or have it improve the character's ability to do something they already can do. For example, a ring of jumping lets its wearer jump great distances, thus augmenting what a character can already do. But as another example, a Ring of the Ram gives the character the ability to deal force damage, which may not be something that they can do naturally. So there are different ways to approach this. The simpler your approach, the easier it is for a character to use the item in play. Giving the item charges is fine, especially if it has several different abilities, but simply deciding that an item is always active or can be used a fixed number of times per day might be easier to manage if you're not prepared to keep track of it another way. There are really two things that you need to consider when creating a new magic item. That's what the power level of the item is going to be, and whether or not the item requires attunement. And I'd like to talk about attunement first. So, when deciding whether the item you're creating requires a character to be attuned to it to use its properties, there are two guidelines that we need to follow to determine whether or not this is necessary. So if we are wanting all the characters in a party, or if you're wanting to prevent all the characters in a party from passing an item around to gain its lasting benefits, that would be a reason to require attunement so that the item isn't used by every player in the course of a day. Or, I mean, it could be if they all decide to attune to it after each use. So yeah, this just limits sharing the item's properties. Another reason to add attunement would be to limit stacking. This is particularly useful if you're trying to prevent a lot of bonus stacking. So if this is an item that provides a +1 to a +3 bonus to some ability, obviously you're going to want to grant the item attunement so that bonus can't be stacked with other bonuses that might add on to the same thing. You don't want your character to try to collect too many items that add to that bonus. So this is a good way of limiting that. So now that we've talked about attunement, let's go ahead and talk about power level. So there's a handy dandy table provided to us in the Dungeon Master's Guide concerning this. This is the magic item power by rarity table. It's just a nice guide to help determine how powerful a magic item should be based on its rarity. Obviously, the higher a item's rarity is, the more powerful it is going to be. And there's a number of things that this table helps with. It gives us a maximum spell level that we might want to, if we want to add a casting of a spell to the item. And then it also provides a maximum bonus that you can add to an item there, so you don't go too powerful in that particular level. So some pretty handy dandy, or just a nice table there to help you make sure that the item is balanced. So obviously, if you're using this table, if you want to create a rare magic item, the max spell level of a spell that you're going to grant the item will be a +5. And then if you're wanting to give a bonus to a rare item, obviously you're going to want to limit that bonus to a +2. So yeah, this is a nice table to keep in reference when determining the power of an item that you're wanting to create. Obviously, not very many items are going to have a +4 bonus. So if you're creating a legendary item with a +4 bonus, that is going to be a very powerful item. So keep that in mind. But yeah, this table is supposed to help determine the power level of an item that you're creating and just give you a small guideline in which to do so. So yeah, there's really those two ways to create a new magic item. Give a lot of different options available to you. Obviously, modifying an item is going to be the easiest way, and there are tons of ways that we can modify an existing item to give a new item that gives some neat properties. But yeah, if you want to create an entirely new item, there are rules to do that, and that magic item by rarity table is very helpful when doing that. So yeah, some pretty easy options to use here. It's very simple to make a new magic item. Just keep in mind how powerful you want that item to be and which way you're going about creating that item, whether it's by modification or creating from scratch. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this short video. I've had fun making these, creating videos. Pretty neat information to add in here, and does help dungeon masters come up with some fun ideas and help show you guys how to use that. So yeah, I appreciate your guys' support. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Take a look at my other videos if you're wanting more information on how to create other things. Particularly, those will be included in this playlist. So keep an eye out for that, and we'll catch you all in the next video. Have a good one, and see ya.